another episode of Culture of Value. I'm your host, Troy Scheer. I'm with Binary Automotive Solutions and Binary Marketing Solutions. Today we have the pleasure of having our guest, Brian Kramer. Brian is a GM for Germain Toyota of Naples. But Brian, you've got a few decades in the auto business, so it's not like this is something new to you, correct?
No, as tough as it is for me to wrap my mind around, I'm going on almost 3 decades. And yeah, I don't know how it just went like that.
Yeah, it flies by. It's amazing. Like you said, 3 decades, all of a sudden you're like, where did that last 30 years go? So, well,
yeah, it's actually 6 decades in car years.
Yes. Well, you know what? You're wearing it well. I mean, you only look like you're about 30 maybe. So it's like you started when you were a baby.
I did start when I was a baby, but I'm well preserved. I got a special blend of vodka and lime juice that I.
Hey, you know what? We all have our embalming fluid, right?
Right.
Oh man. Well, what I want to talk with you about today, Brian, is being a general manager and kind of seeing where things are. I've been around a lot of dealerships and just hearing things through Clubhouse and just various places. I get to sit back and listen to a lot of things that are happening in the industry. And one of the things I've heard and kind of keep hearing that is, I don't know what we call it an obstacle, but definitely something that dealerships and general managers are having to deal with right now. I mean, I know talking to you, you're all about developing, creating an experience for your customer, making sure that every customer has a great experience when they're with your dealership. But some of the things I've heard, it's very challenging, I think, to bring the 3 areas from sales and finance and service all together so that the team is having an excellent experience together so that they can really provide that excellent experience to the customer. So what are some of the things that we've talked a little bit, but some of the things you're seeing in terms of those issues, and what are you doing as a general manager to help alleviate that or make those things better?
Well, we actually talked about it in our managers meeting this morning, and as I told them, they said, I just want to know the right answer. Mason Martindale, my equity service drive manager, sales manager. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know what's right or what's wrong. I just know there's pros and cons to both, right? So let's look at it from our perspective. Let's look at it from the customer's perspective. And as he was saying, sometimes the appraisal tool will say that a trade is worth X. And the customer had already been on our website and they saw that the value was worth Y. And because of various reasons and margin compression and things like that, we got to make a decision on whether or not we're going to retail or wholesale the car. And as I told him, I said, I don't know what the right answer is. I know that it's probably not worth what that thing said it is in this market, but we got to look at it through the customer's lens and not through our lens. And how are we going to explain to them that it is worth something less? And there really isn't a good answer to that. So we're going to have to give it to them, and we're going to have to figure it out somewhere else, because our, inefficiencies or whatever you want to call it, our, market it's not the customer's fault. So if I can dispose of that vehicle, even though I want to retail it, and I need to look at that as the best interest for the customer, even though it's not in the best interest for us not to retail the car, you got to make a decision one way or another. And that's one of our core values, and it's part of our culture. And if I go back on that, then I'm sending a message to everybody else as to what I'm willing to tolerate, what I'm willing to, we say something around here, if you permit it, you promote it. Mm-hmm. And if I permit that to happen, I'm essentially promoting it, or not taking action and not addressing that. As uncomfortable and as frustrating as it is, it has to be addressed so that the associates don't have that friction in their life. And there's all these little things that happen in between the departments, and when a call comes in, a lot of times, why is it F&I not answering the phone? Well, F&I is answering the phone because they're out in the showroom trying to meet and greet every customer and greet them early. But we always chastise them. You got to return your voicemails, and then they're in there in the office. Why are you in your office? You need to be on the showroom talking to customers. And it's a no-win
situation. Yeah.
Accounting, why are these CITs stacking up? How come you're not in your office and you're out here on the showroom floor when you got these CITs to address? And all these issues that you and I both experienced over the years is what frustrates people to leave this industry. And, for instance, in that scenario, we're building an FAQ page because that's something that comes up all the time. So there's going to be a link. How do they handle it? They can submit a lead submission form, which goes to accounting, which is who really needs the cancellation forms anyway. so
Right.
that they can focus on what they need to focus on, since they're typically responding to those phone calls and putting out fires after 2 or 3 voicemails because they're on the showroom. Then they just fill out that form, give it to accounting anyway. Why not just get it directly to them? And a lot of those things, I think that, general managers and managers don't look at it through that lens. We look at it as we're so busy sawing that we don't have time to sharpen the blade. But if you don't sharpen the blade when there is downtime to redirect all those things, that's what causes employee friction, associate friction. It causes a lack of trust, and trust is the foundation, as you know, of any culture. And it's
and that's in any business or industry. It doesn't, if you have those issues where the team's not working well, and I almost equate it to, like you said, whether it's finance, accounting, service, all those things. It's I pull it to the old football analogy of you've got 3 teams within a team. You've got your offense, defense, and special teams. And if any of those are pointing the finger or, okay, I'm mad at you because you didn't do this, and we're taking the lead, we're doing more than you are, and that just creates a really bad culture within the group versus all 3 of them working together and going, hey, okay, we need to, you're having a little downtime here, we need to pick up the slack, and vice versa, where everybody is looking, as you say, to this is our brand, this is our goal, this is what we were trying to achieve, to make sure that when people see us in the world, that all of those things in the background are not visible to them in terms of what's going on in the locker room. We just want to see what you do when you hit the field. And I think that's where the car industry, any other industry that I've been involved with over the last as you said 25, 30 years, it's the same thing. You've got to make sure everybody's working together, because when that trust breaks down, you start losing.
It all breaks down.
And
Urban Meyer, is my connection going bad?
No, I got you.
Okay. So Urban Meyer, we brought in his culture coach, Tim Kite, right here to the dealership at a dealership level. And Mr. Germain, obviously from Columbus, Ohio, has a connection with the Ohio State University. So the Ohio State Buckeyes have a great culture. So we, asked Tim Kite to come in and try to see if we could implement what it would take to install a culture like that football culture in a car dealership. And it was fascinating the way that he looked at it. And it was all about trust. And he said, most dealerships that he has, worked with focus more on skills and ability than culture. And Urban Meyer says that, he was going back in the NFL for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was, working for ESPN or Fox, as he's going around the difference, because every NFL team has great players. They all have talent, just like most car dealerships now, right? So you've all got skilled players, and this person's as good as this, and maybe there's a little bit of it, but they're all great. They all can do their job with excellence. But the difference between the good teams and the great teams is trust, it's culture, it's it's everything that is right behind you. And if you don't have those things, that's the differentiator. There's a reason why, if you think about statistically, Bill Belichick with the Patriots over the last 25, 30 years has not had the most number 1 picks. The Browns in Cleveland should be by far the best team in football, because they have had, statistically speaking, the best draft picks in terms of improving their organization. And the Patriots have not. So how do they consistently, end up in that? Well, obviously part of it's, Tom Brady, and we're going to talk about that. They had all the core skills. They bring him in. He doesn't have a hard time, with trust, calling out the defense, calling out the special teams, or calling out the offense, not in a negative way, but he's going to hold them accountable. And
that's just it. Like you used the term right there. There's a difference between holding somebody accountable because you know what the standards are and we're working together for a common goal, versus just pointing the finger. And I think that's the key. He was never pointing the finger. He's like, we can be better. It goes, and that includes me. It's never okay, put a bubble around me, I'm perfect, and then point. It's like, we all have to do it. And guys, we've committed to this, and you're not holding, and when he falls flat, he will say, hey, I didn't do my job today.
Right, and he owns it. But there's also clarity. There's a belief that it's possible. And there's a lot of things with myself and my managers from the outside looking in that, we're a little intense, and man, those guys are, it must be a pressure cooker. But I think that clarity actually diffuses the pressure because you know exactly what's expected of you. Mm-hmm. It's not this unexpected, oh, I'm going to get blindsided. What do they want today? Oh, hey, how come you're not waiting on that customer? Hey, why is this? Why didn't this get done? And it's not consistent. When there's clarity, consistency, and the cadence of accountability, and you know that the person next to you is going to get held accountable, and everybody wants to be held accountable because they want everybody else to be held accountable. And that's, like you said, it's a huge misinterpretation. I misinterpreted it for decades as a negative thing when it's actually a liberating thing to have structure, accountability. It's like Jocko Willink says, it sets you free.
Well, and I think the big thing, like you said, is the consistency. When as you come into any team, and that's what it is, whatever business you're in, you're coming to a team together. If you all know that here's what we're playing for, fighting for, whatever verb you want to use, but we all are looking at that same goal and objective, and that everything that is happening in terms of critique, praise, whatever, is all because of we're trying to reach this goal collectively. It's nothing, there aren't personal feelings and, I don't know, is he mad at me today or whatever, and that kind of thing too, where as a GM, it's good to have that consistency every day. I know what he's going to expect, and I know how he is, so it's not, okay, one day it's this, next day it's that, because then the confusion, you just don't know what's going on, and confusion takes anybody and goes, I've had enough of this, bye. And that's where, like you said, you can take really skilled people and have so many things going on and no clarity and consistency and direction that they're finally just like, enough.
And on that note, our tagline is simple, fast, easy. And it's so easy to make this business complicated, as you know. And resisting the urge, because there's a lot of times where, certain things that we do on the service drive or in the parts department. Hey, what if we pack this amount? Or what if we added this? Or what if we offered this product, which isn't necessarily a value to the associates or the customer, but it's profitable. And it creates a little bit more friction, and it extends the time, maybe 15, 20 minutes. But it's profitable. And that's really where the tough part of your culture has to take over, is we have to have the willingness that if we're going to be simple, fast, and easy, if something's not wrapped around that, we have to be willing to say no, even if it is more profitable short term. And that's a hard decision to make.
And there's the key work, is what you were talking about a while ago too, with the person coming in with the trade. You go, okay, what do we do? This was our tool, got out there, this is what we said. The profitability short term is that short term profit where potentially risking that lifetime value to the customer, who now comes back consistently for those things that are high profit, and now comes back and buys a second or third car or another car for their family, that they're saying, man,
somebody.
Yeah, this place is great, man. When I come in, they get me taken care of. I know I can trust what they're saying because they're upfront about things. I mean, it's just like that with the trade. Okay, yeah, we could cheat them basically now and not do what we said we were going to do. And now we've got an upset customer who may just say, well, to heck with this, I'm not even going to buy a car, period. And then they go,
and we're going to give them that number anyway.
Right.
After all that brain damage.
Yeah. So it's like you said, the less friction and the more you can do based on your core values and really using, and I think that's one place that a lot of brands, and this isn't just a, auto industry kind of thing, it's just everywhere. They don't have that North Star that said, this is what we're about. And the decisions that we make are based on that, not on short-term profit, but on building the brand and building profitability over the next, 4, 5, 6 decades.
I could not agree with you more. And so many organizations don't have that North Star, and they don't make it clear to everybody in the organization. And so unless you're willing to hang it on your commercials, and unless you're willing to put it on the website, it might as well just be a mission statement in the back lunchroom.
Well, and that's just it, because you can say everything. I mean, you can come up with every, mission statement, vision statement. You can sit, if you're not living it, and and especially from the leadership standpoint, if the dealer principals and the GM and all, as you come down through the ranks, if you're not living it, well, then why should I down here live it? It's like I'm looking to you to, as my mentor or whatever, to get up to that position and potentially in the business. Well, if he doesn't, stick by his word and what we say, why should I? And then that's just false.
you bring a great point, because a lot of times, our salespeople, our managers, our service advisors, our technicians get a lot of the credit for a lot of those things. But Mr. Germain, who owns the dealership, gives us an insane amount of trust and lets us make mistakes. And trust me, we make a lot, and trying this and trying that. And, but if we make it quick and we regroup. And obviously they're not all mistakes, but you have to be willing to take risks, and you have to be willing to try things and without fear of repercussion. And that's a major key for dealer principals, general managers, everybody. I see so many of my friends and peers that are reluctant to, well, I don't know if this person will do this. Well, how do you know? Unless you let them, you don't know what they're capable of until they try. And everybody wants to be enabled, empowered, so much more than ever before.
Well, and as you said too, when you have some ownership in it, and you feel like at whatever level in the company you're in, that man, somebody's listening to me, and my idea was, even if it didn't work out, was at least listened to, or that it was taken and going, oh, there's a nugget here that we can take and build upon. And now you feel like as an employee, a team, I always like better to say a team member, when you feel like you're really a valued member of the team, you're going to work a lot harder to improve and make sure that you can go, oh, wow, okay. And that goes to then those people talking to their peers that are in their immediate scope and going, wow, they actually listen to us. They take our ideas and are working together, and we're not just a number on in the HR department, we're not just a number and that kind of thing. So I think that just helps build overall that trust. And so everybody has the ability to do the great right thing, which is make sure the customer's taken care of. And I think, like you said, when you start building that trust across, in areas of the business and giving people some ownership and being able to affect change. So when there is a problem, that they can, okay, I've got some authority here to actually solve this problem, so that I don't have to run it up to the GM every time, which then also takes off a load off of somebody like you, who's now, because you've got plenty to handle as it is. The more that you can build that trust and grant some authority and responsibility and ownership, it just makes the job that much easier for you too, which then relieves you some time and brain damage to be able to think about what else can we do to make things better. No,
and by doing, you hit the nail on the head. What you just laid out is the key to digital transformation. And I think it's what you just said is the biggest roadblock on why many dealers don't actually get to that point, because they try to do it all by themselves. But you have to be sincere, genuine, authentic with your team and mean it. And in our organization, if they come to us with a problem, they have to come with a proposed solution. And it doesn't have to be the perfect one. It doesn't even have to work. You just want them to think it through as to what would fix it, to get that mindset going. The second thing, we did it this morning. Last night, Jared Kilway and I were here till the wee hours of the night, and we've been working on this for a long, long time. So we made a few tweaks to the desking software. Now, there's some things that we were able to do, some things that we weren't, and there's some things that are much, much different than the last software that we had. So we rolled it out this morning in the managers meeting, and I meant it, not just saying it as lip service. Poke holes in this, and if you guys are not in and you see stuff that I'm not seeing, because it makes sense to me, but if you see big glaring gaps, and this is probably the third go around we've had at this, then we're not going to do it. And this morning, finally, they said, no, we can run with this play. This is so much better. And so now, and I texted a menu to each one of them in the meeting. So work this up. Tell me if it's freezing up, if it's not working, if it's not calculating correctly. Poke as many holes in it as possible, because once you tell me it's okay, we're running forward and we're going to burn the other ship in the harbor, like Cortez, and we're never going back. So Make sure you tell me this is ready, because it looks shiny and it looks good, but it better work. So we're moving forward now after a bunch of trial runs.
Well, and that's the thing there too now, because you've got buy-in from everybody, because you've actually requested their input, and now it can't be one of those things too later on. Well, I don't like it. You developed that, so now there's some accountability there on them too. Is guys, we talked. If something came to that point where you could say, you had an opportunity up front. Don't come, later on. So that creates that accountability there too. The more ownership you have, then you can't come and go, well, it was your fault. You picked it. We had nothing to do with this. So I think that also helps by establishing those kind of things up front. you don't have those people who later on just maybe get lazy or just whatever, that they can't come back to you and say, well, I didn't want to do this. Well, no.
I've also worked for organizations that just say, this is what we're doing. There's a memo. There's no training. There's no implementation schedule. It's not that hard. Just make it work. And it just blows up. And then 90 days later, you're getting rid of it, not because it's a bad product, but because of the implementation strategy and the launch strategy wasn't well thought through. And somebody agreed to something and they never got the ideas. And there are valid points. Hey, what about this? What about that? Oh, I didn't think about that. We'll do it anyway. And that's not a buy-in way.
And when you have a situation like that, you may have had the best software, the best solution in the world, but because there wasn't buy-in up front, people felt like, okay, I'm just going to ignore it. Now they will come up with every excuse, and I think that is the key there. You just can't have that situation where it's just demanded upon you. And I think anybody when has something just shoved down their throat, your first reaction is, okay, I'm going to fight this just because.
Right. Yeah. Because you didn't have buy-in. I'm just getting, blasted by this. They've got a job to do and they've got all this other stuff going on. And then they get, just blindsided by that. That's not how you build trust. That's not how you build a culture. And if you really care about your people, you really trust them, you won't do those things to them, I've been the middleman in between, corporate structures and my team. As a leader, you've got to push up and say, I'm not okay without this and this and this, communicating to my team because it's gonna ruin my stock value, and they're gonna trust me less, and I'm not okay with that because that's the core of the culture.
Completely. So, how do you then take that? Like I said, so we know that. What do you do? What is your philosophy, trainings type? As far as getting that now through the entire dealership, because obviously everybody, like we talked about, kind of has their own little, I want to take care of sales, or I want to take care of this or that. What is the process that you have put in place to make sure that everybody is, so if you're in service, that there is a way that they can see and visualize what's happening and why these things in sales and F&I and accounting and all that are important, so that they understand that everybody has a role to play and they to think a little bit differently. Again, from sales over to service. One of the things I've always found interesting when I've purchased vehicles is the salesperson who sells you the car never actually goes and introduces you to anybody in service. So it's almost like, well, because that's taking my time away from selling. Why do I want to do that? When I'm thinking, well, so what do you do? Is there a way to structure things from a different pay incentive or just a mental change in their thought process? How do you do that so that you don't, because what a great way to, gain or lose something right there when you make that sale of developing that relationship with the part of the business that, as I was looking the other day, was it like 49% of the profits come from service? How do you make sure that, but how do you make sure that Mr. Sales Guy here, who's only concerned about his commission, potentially thinks a little bit bigger picture? So,
as you know, Troy, that's such a hard question to answer. And it's that is, and I'm going to start off by just saying we're not all the way there, and we're far from perfect when it comes to that, right? I'll say and we still have a long way to go with the onboarding. Now I've got a culture presentation that I'm taking them all through, why we do it, what we're doing, and why it's important. But you can't, and I've learned this the hard way, after that 30 days, the drop off, it doesn't just take care of itself, right? So the sustainment after that is where we have a huge opportunity. And we're working with a software company, an onboarding company, to help us develop that. I spoke to the John Maxwell organization yesterday to try to start with bringing the leadership of the sales and service departments and the parts departments together in body shop, so that we start with the management team and then it percolates down. We haven't begun that yet. But I will say on a micro level, we've got a really strong equity sales process off the service drive. We sell, 120 to 140 cars a month off of there. And then we acquire another 20 to 30 vehicles on top of that. And getting the service advisors and the salespeople, because we've got 12 dedicated salespeople that just do that. They don't take offers. They work Sundays off. They're off at 5 o'clock during the week unless they have an appointment. They get 2 days off, either Tuesday or Wednesday and Sunday. So that's a pretty good schedule in the car business, unlike anything I ever heard of.
Oh, completely. So, and I think that's the thing too, when you have that kind of thing where you're thinking about that team member and how do I show them that they're valuable so that they feel more, again, part of the team and not just being beaten down too of okay, just.
I'm not telling you got to work nights when there's nobody coming through the service drive,
right?
Because that's the way we've always done it. But initially, the service advisors are like, wait, you're going to talk to my customer. You're getting in the mid. So they wanted to greet them. They said, now you're taking the customer from me. I don't get to start the clock. The car doesn't get, the RO is not opened. So we haven't taken it back to the shop. This is a express service oil change, tire rotation. So now I'm on the clock for 60 minutes. Toyota's going to hold me accountable for, cycle time. The technician's back there going, what's going on? Because obviously we know that's the only thing they have is their time.
Right.
And they hold on to it with a grip as they should. So the salesperson's, trying to build value, slow them down, which is, what the process always was, which is the opposite of what they should be doing. And let's say we don't come to terms. Oh, hey, where's the customer? Yeah, they said that, we didn't work out the deal on the trade. Well, we haven't put their car back in service yet. Oh, that's not good. Right. So now it's a 3-hour thing. We get hammered on the survey. The service advisor is the one who gets hammered, not the salesperson. Why is this happening? Or they sell them and then they took, I had a 6 or 8 hour job with timing belt, water pump, serpentine, the whole deal. And on top of everything else that was available to sell. And now you took it in on trade because you said, oh, don't pay your service bill. I can give you more for your trade. And then the internal recon team ends up doing all that work to put it out on the lot. And then the RO doesn't go back to the service advisor. So all of those situations, one by one, until you jump into it and start, I guess, bumping into guardrails, you're not able to fix them. And when they would, there would be a scuffle about something like that, maybe we need to make sure we close the RO, the CP RO, before we let the internal team do. And this is a lot of things like that. So now we've got a great working relationship between the advisors. And it took, I don't know, a year and a half of a lot of bumping and grinding like that for everybody to understand where everybody was coming from. And I guess the answer to your question is just a hell of a lot of communication consistently over and over and over again.
I was going to ask, like, within that situation, because you have all these different points of view and where things are going, are you able to kind of to help solve or at least start the ideation of a fix? Do you bring all those folks together and go, okay, let's listen to everybody's point of view so that as we're developing a solution that we haven't forgotten something and going, oh God, this was perfect up until we missed that one.
You already know the answer to that question, but that's the only way. And if I talk, and I had it happen this morning, somebody said, hey, I want to talk to you about this situation with this other manager. I'm not doing that. We're going to bring that person in because I'm not going to say anything that I wouldn't say in front of their face. So they probably don't know about it, but having a conversation with one manager, which, is one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned, is no daylight, right? And not having daylight between one manager and another manager, because most times they just won't communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. And just by bringing them in, and the other person goes, well, I don't know if you realize this, but this and this and this. Oh, if I would have known that, I wasn't, because they don't give them the benefit of the doubt because there's no trust, comes down to the culture. But unless you bring everybody in and just have candid conversation, and I maybe too direct with it, but Wendell Hardy, my general sales manager, Cindy, my service director, we just bring them in. Hey, this person said this about you. What do you have to say about that? And that's probably a little blunt or a little direct, but I want them to know that is going to happen. So there's no sense talking about behind somebody's back or saying, hey, this person did this to me. Well, I'm going to tell them exactly what you told me to them, and knowing that there's less of that.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like you said, if you know you're going to be called on it, and you actually have to go, face to face with, you get to meet your accuser, so to speak. It definitely eliminates a lot of those issues, because it's easy for me to come and tell you, man, so and so is this and so is that, but then when I got to sit to their face and tell them, it's another, it's like, oh crap, no, I don't want to do that. So I would think, and I've seen this just with my team too. It's like when those things happen, that by doing that, they realize, well, I thought I was just going to be able to create a little grief for them, But now it's actually come back on me that, I may have taken something and extrapolated a whole lot more into it than what was really there. And now I'm being held accountable for my actions. So I think that's a perfect thing, because it's like, if you don't have that direct communication where everybody's talking, there's always room for somebody's interpretation of something, like you said. And I think that being direct, whether it may be hard for somebody to hear the truth, let's say, but it's better that than letting that fester, and then all of a sudden 6 months down the road, everybody is bubbling and boiling because they're mad at each other for stuff that should have been addressed 6 months prior, and then we could have moved forward as a team. So I think that's, and again, that's not just that's every industry I've seen. So, and
parenting, and my one daughter said something about the other daughter. My wife and I both run the exact same play. Bring them in.
All right, let's say what you said. And when their eyes get that big, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't know what's happening right now. I didn't think it was coming back around, and it's made my two daughters trust each other a lot more. I mean, there's nothing that undermines trust, in my opinion, more than a leader that allows a closed door meeting to talk privately about somebody else, and then that it's not shared, and then they don't have an opportunity to improve, and they're completely unaware of what the issue was, or they hear about this indirectly and they're like, wow, can I trust either one of them again? Because why didn't they I wish they would have told me.
Sometimes I think that is the key that I see is, again, people want to try to hold on to so much information. And yes, of course, there are certain things that not everybody in an organization needs to know, but I think the more transparent you are with things, that way too, when there is something that you've held back, they go, okay, well, this is probably something that is super important that doesn't need to be discussed for, and you don't feel like, well, what are they talking about me? Because, you get, it may be a subconscious thing, but when you have, you take 6 or 8 people like that all of a sudden think that each other, it just destroys what you have going. And that completely takes away from, there's so much energy and mental energy put into trying to fix those things that it takes away from what you're trying to do. I mean, the business is to sell more cars and build relationships with people and get them to referrals and all of those things. So it's a big energy suck, in my opinion.
From what everybody who's on this podcast listening to it, if you're watching the replay of this, I would rewind that back to what he just said and then play it back forward again, because the amount of energy that is put into what you just referred to, Troy, with the assumptions and it's always something different than what we think it is, right? There's always a third side to the story that nobody anticipates, but that's what kills productivity. That's what kills culture, when the unknown, the lack of transparency, and the hiding stuff, instead of just I'm an open book. This is me. I'm going to tell you my weaknesses. I've got my wife would probably add a few to the list, but it's I got more issues than Sports Illustrated, so I'm far from perfect, but we all are, right?
Right.
Until you are okay just saying that, and everybody knowing that, well, if they had an issue with me, trust me, I'd know it, because they're not going to pull any punches, and they're going to let me know way out in front. And when it's a minor thing, instead of going, as my GSM says, from a 3 to a 10, and not going up each different volume level in between, and you go from here and it festers, and all of a sudden, boom. And that's not healthy. It's reactive, and it scares people. I was like that at one point in my career, and it's you live and you learn, but that was not the way to go.
Such a simple concept, and so challenging to actually implement, isn't it?
Oh yeah. They brought up this morning in my manager's meeting, we were talking about transparency, and I'm showing them, I said, I want to make the front desk empowered, that, one of the biggest calls we get is, I want to cancel my warranty, or I need to know the status of my gap contract, or I've called my finance manager. And why is the finance manager not calling them back? Because I'm asking them to go out on the showroom floor and greet every customer and TO every customer. And it's a constant push-pull. The F&I manager then calls after 2 or 3 voicemails because the customer's urgent, in the hour. I don't know how to handle this. They must have been calling back. It's a problem. And then they call back and just end up answering the question that the receptionist could have answered had I empowered her with the answer, which is you just have to get on this, online link and fill out this form, which will go to accounting. And it's this big circle of frustration we create for the associates, friction points, and the friction points that then lead to the customer that all can be eliminated. And I know the associates sit there and think this is a no-win battle. How can I ever, this is a no-win situation. And they got some validity, but typically most managers, I don't want to hear it. You're just weak. You need to toughen up, get thicker skin, and just figure it out. And that's not always the answer. And I look at my job as a leader, as a friction slayer, is just to remove friction.
Exactly. And that's when, we start talking about all the things of digital retailing and all of that. The whole purpose of that is to reduce friction with the customer. Because that's one of the things I was actually doing some research on for a presentation I'd had a week or so ago, just talking in the fixed op side and what's the issues that really frustrate customers the most. And the one that kept coming up was, time, taking too much of my time, inconvenience. It's like people are so busy in the work. It's like as when you can solve, provide a solution to somebody on that first call, they're like, holy crap. Yeah, I like these people. They got my, because again, if you've got to call back a third and fourth time, it's like, and I've had this, just recently, not in the auto side, but some other things that have had some issues. And I'm like, good God. It's like, and again, because, we say in business time is money. Well, as an individual, my time is worth something too. And when you're wasting it, you're taking my money away. And I've always seen too that, the more that you can solve those problems quickly, the more likely they are to spend more money with you. Because again, it's like, okay, well, you've solved the problem for me quickly. Now I'm willing to, the next time that I need something, I'm going to come to you for it because I know that you're going to take care of me, whether it's purchasing something new or a service or whatever. It's, if we don't look to how we can value the team's time and then have that same mindset for the customers, some things just can't be done at the snap of a finger, and people recognize that. I had an issue here, it was a couple months ago where I had to take a car in. It was something, the part it was going to take a few days to get because they had, okay, hey, I get it. This isn't an oil change, but if it's an oil change, I shouldn't have to wait 3 hours because, and this is a true story here too, where I took my daughter's car in for an oil change, and the service advisor he's like, it's going to be about 3 hours. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. I had an appointment. Number one, you're telling me it's going to be 3 hours to change my oil? Well, we didn't have 3 techs show up today. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something you all screwed up on. I shouldn't have to have. So, and then on top of it, that particular one did not have, there was no shuttle or anything like that. So then I've got to go, okay, either I sit here or I call my wife who's got stuff to do, and I know she doesn't want to have to drive down here and get me, or I pay for a Lyft. Yeah. And I'm like, well, crap. Do I want to go? Is the next time this comes up, is it good? So already I'm thinking, well, okay, is this going to be the next time? If so, why do I want to come here? Yes, granted, I've got we bought the maintenance package and all that kind of thing, but it's like, crap, my time's worth more. I'd rather just go pay for it, somewhere else and get it done in 20 minutes and be on my way. So I think there's things there.
That's a great example of the new, I guess, and nobody ever talks about that stuff. We talk about it. I encourage and require my managers to talk about it, because unless we're addressing a situation like that and it's clear and we've got clarity around that situation, most people don't want to talk about that because it's uncomfortable and it's awkward, and they go, well, I don't want to turn away business. And I don't know what the right answer to that situation is, but there needs to be communication, and you need to be given the option that, hey, like a doctor's office would be, just so you know, we're overbooked. We had this happen. Before you leave your house and come in, we don't want to blindside you. We had, 3 technicians call in sick. You are a logical person. You're going to understand that. But when you get, surprised is when the trust goes down.
And you're right. Like I said, it's completely different than if it was just, you just pull up and, well, hey, I was in the area and hoping, oh, well, we don't, okay. great. But when you've set the appointment and you've got certain things in your schedule that you're like, okay, great. And now, and then again too, okay, well, now I got to go back and pick it up. It's just all of those little things. And that was the difference in experience with where I had it was a Ford, where I was going to have to wait. And the guy said, hey, we've got Lyft. We'll get you home. We'll keep you posted. And he literally, the service advisor called me immediately it was on Saturday. As soon as they found out what the issue was, he's like, here's the thing. Here's when it's going to be in. Once we get it fixed, we'll let you know. We'll, set up a time and we'll send you a lift and they'll bring you right back. And it was like, my time spent and money spent was, 15 minutes, because it wasn't far away, but it was like, now I'm like, okay, this is a great place to go back and have your car serviced because they actually value my time.
And that's a great example of a culture permeating through everything, right? So what we were talking about earlier, that associates, if they have a problem, they should come with a solution. Mm-hmm. Programming them as a leader to think things through like that is the difference between the one scenario and the other scenario. The one scenario, the advisor gives you, they both had problems, right? But one of them had a solution, the other one didn't. And it's all that, I believe, comes through the habit of making sure that you don't just give all these, which I used to do. I was horrible at it. I just give them the answers, right? But not making them fight for it, not making them think, that fixes most of those problems because they're already going to have a proposed solution. And if they're empowered with Lyft because it's been made clear, they don't have to go check with the manager, have initial off on a form, then this, and I'm waiting to hear back from this person. He's tied up with this upset person and there's 3 more waiting because there's no clarity around anything. So I'm not empowered to do anything. So that's going to take a little bit longer too. Or, a pizza tracker. I know that for me, it's not about, I think it was during a McGregor fight or some sporting event, I ordered a pizza and it said it was going to be almost 2 hours. And I'm like, 2 hours? Wow. It used to be 30-minute guarantee, but I really don't care. I just want to know, when is it coming so I can do something else in the meantime. I don't have to be sitting there waiting. I can't leave my house. Can I go run to the, grab something real quick or do something else or go to my neighbor's house? I got to, instead of just sitting there idle, I really hope the cable guy shows up, the next 4 hours. And I don't,
right.
You can make productive use of your time.
And I think that is, this is just coming from a customer mindset and point of view, that as dealerships start thinking about the customer's time more than anything else, it's like, hey, no offense, but I don't want to sit in your damn waiting room to have my cup of coffee on my Wi-Fi. I would rather you know what I'm saying? So it's like, where do you invest? It's like, yeah, if it's, if you're going to be there 20 minutes, well, that's great. I can have a cup of coffee while I'm sitting here, whatever. But with those other things, it's like, just value my time. And, then when the bill comes, I'm not, so I spent 3 hours here for this. It's like you just have a different mindset coming into it. And I think when dealerships on, the front and back end start looking at things as the most valuable thing I can do for my customer is save them time, be honest and upfront, then pricing doesn't become so much, unless you're just gouging me.
No, you're 100%. I was just reading this Google study called the messy middle. And if you take a look at it, it looks from 1990 to today. And it takes a look at the search terms of this is best and this is best price, right? Mm-hmm. Or best value, best price. And the amount of people that are typing in best price has been on a downward decline since 1990, like a sharp downward decline. And best value is going up. So people are no different than right behind you. I mean, they're valuing value more than just simply price, because time, there's so many more things that go into value than just bottom line price. And in some countries that it was different, but in the United States, it's absolutely not. In Europe, it's absolutely not. People are looking at it much differently. And, most dealerships and sales and service and parts are advertising coupons, price. And we're not advertising like Domino's. They might do a coupon if you haven't been with them, but they're really not the best price. They're actually, and they used to be $4.99. They hung their hat on that.
But again, it's like, what is the value proposition that you have? And that's one of the things that we talk about here with binary with our clients, is that, think about the value proposition that you offer, and then you don't have to, again, like I said, if you're gouging somebody, that's crap too. But if you are getting a fair profit for what it's like, I don't mind. If you're valuing my time, I get it. You need to make a profit. Everybody needs to make a profit. The one thing I can't make more, I can make more money to help pay you, but I can't make more time. So when you value my time so I can go make more money, I'm much more likely to come and do business with you, whether that be, buying appliances or as a doctor or as, an auto, whatever those things are. And I think that's the mindset that from what I've seen, again, I've only been in the auto industry for a few years here, being with Binary. Before I was, working marketing for tons of different industries. But that's the big thing I see is always, unless you can somehow get away and be the 99-cent little widget that everybody, and you're selling millions of widgets.
They're going to be one price leader.
That's exactly. And that's what's so funny when you hear we got the lowest price in town. I'm like, well, wow, okay, that's not exactly what I would want to be selling myself on and building my brand on, is that we're cheap. Because usually
then you can't pay your people, and it's hard to have the best people when you're not paying.
Well, and just from a customer standpoint, I go, okay, well, if you're that cheap on this, you're not working for free. Where are you screwing me now? And it's like, that's why I say, if you're transparent about where you're making profit throughout the process of things, I don't care. I just saw something the other day that was brought to my attention. Won't say where from or anything, but that it was a dealership where they were making on some of the deals $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 profit on the deal, and it's just like, I always say, hey, if you're making $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 profit, man, good for you. But when you start doing those kind of things and fudging things in places and then sticking it to me somewhere else, it's hidden. Eventually I'm going to figure it out, and then I'm like, okay, now I really think you suck. And I'm going to be out letting everybody else know that I was ripped off. Don't ever go here. It's like just what you talked about in the very beginning. Are you looking short term? So we got to get as much as we can in this next 12 months because we're going to piss so many people off that we're going to have to take 3 years to get back to the point of people even having any faith in us to come be a customer.
There's a competitor here in town that when I got here in 16 was selling 1,000 new cars a month. And it wasn't when I traded some of these people out, it wasn't always done the right way, right? But it was very profitable for them at the time. About a year ago, that same dealership was selling 200 new cars a month. And, the way in which they went about it, it's taken 5 years for the customers to kind of get over what happened and how it went down. So it's not always an immediate thing. And there's the book Atomic Habits. People typically don't make adjustments quick enough because when the negative things that you're doing to your body or to whatever, you don't see the effects immediately, and you don't see the effects of the negative immediately either. That's why it takes so long for people to stop doing them, because it's not until there's some sudden jolt, like when COVID initially hit, everybody goes, whoa, we got to really rethink the business, right? And we got to go digital. And nobody wanted to talk about digital up until March of 2020. It was no sense of urgency for it until we had to do it. We got to do remote pickup, remote drop off. All of a sudden, boom, Brian Benstock's doing it, 4 years prior to that. Mm-hmm. I remember him saying, what, do you fix the roof during a hurricane, or are you going to fix it when it's sunny out? Because most people wait till the hurricane's announced and there's no plywood and there's no anything. And that's obviously not the time to do it. So all of those dealers, like what you're talking about, they need to look at it the same way. Is that right now the sun's shining, you need to, and I tell my team every single day, and the managers all tell their teams every single day that, we're right now preparing for the worst. And we're right now building the infrastructure. And this could happen at any time. When it happens, that's going to be an even stronger land grab for us, because we're already going to be more than prepared. Now we build a brick house instead of a straw house that's going to get blown over.
That is actually, I'm smiling because it's just found out yesterday that the team here, our executive vice president, and then Dane Seville, I'm sure you know, and April Simmons and Fleming Ford, we're doing a digital dealer in October in Vegas. And the title of it's sunny now, but is your ark ready for the flood? You know, and that's exactly what we're talking about, is that if you wait until the shit hits the fan, you're waited too long. You got to be looked. And that's why I think too, you know, just always being visible, you know, understanding from a social media and how all those things work, that I think is a great thing for dealerships to be aware of too, because people do talk. And the more that, you know, if you're not afraid to see the truth, you know, again, there's always those people out there who just bitch and to bitch, but if you see the truth and are willing to accept it and go, okay, what do we do? How do we resolve these problems before they become so large that it's gone from a scratch to a major infection, and now we're, you know, lopping off limbs?
So on that note, you got me thinking. I think in 2013, I went dark off social media, and I didn't get back on until I think 2019. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know, it's a distraction. I've got, you know, an ADHD, so I got enough issue with distractions. I don't need any more. And Wendell, my GSM, he told me at one point, he goes, hey, you need to get back on there. And I said, I have a focus problem. I at least know my limitations. And he said, you don't do it for you. You do it for the team. And I go, how's that going to benefit the team? And he said, because we need to tell everybody what our core values are, and just put it out there. Our customers, our associates, everybody needs to see it, and everybody needs to experience it over and over and over again. And I'll say that we just, this morning and last week, picked up 3 A players in the market. I mean, as good as they get at their position, and all of them were willing to take a step back to be on the team. And they said, look, we saw what you guys are about. We've watched all your managers on social media, and we want to be a part of it. And it's not about the money. They said, I just want to be a part of changing things. And we were able to bolster our team even more in an amazing way, because it's like a North Star, like you said, that people are aligned towards. And they said, I just feel like your core values are my core values, and nobody down here is talking about it. And I feel that same way. And I think a lot of people feel like that, but unless you're willing to put it out there, you put it on commercials, TV, it shouldn't be any different between customers, your associates. We all need to pull the curtain back in marketing and just put our core values out there and our culture and what we stand for, and then do it. And I think that's the secret. That's the key right now.
I could not agree with you more. Like I said, I think that, when we think about it, it's like, well, how simple is that? But it requires work, I think, and that's the real key is, you know, it doesn't require a lot of thought or a lot of work to go, okay, we've got this for 19,000 or this for 30 or whatever the case may be, to throw an ad up that's got price. That doesn't take a whole lot of thought or work. I mean, let's face it, if you had somebody that's a kid in high school with just some decent graphics abilities could put that together for you. It doesn't require a lot of experience or wisdom or any of those kind of things. And that's why I think a lot of that happens, is because it's work. I mean, we don't like to have to get outside of our comfort zone and do things that, you know, require a little extra effort. But in the long run, again, putting that little bit of extra effort in up front makes, it's like I was telling my son last night, when I had him out, he was running hill, he plays football, running hills with a weight vest on. You know, that's a whole lot. You got an extra 30 pounds hanging on you. Sprinting up hills is pretty hard. But then when you take that 30 pounds off and you're running on a flat surface, wow. So it's like you got to go through the
prepare for the worst, and you'll be ready for the best.
Yeah. Because then those things, that when you're in the game, those things are easy. Then you're not having to, oh God, by the fourth quarter I'm beat. No, I'm ready to go because I put in all the extra, the pain that I had to feel.
Right.
I'm now feeling the accomplishment from. And that's, it's
sweat and practice so you don't bleed in battle.
Right. So I think I love this. I said we didn't haven't had a chance to meet personally. We kind of passed by each other at Digital Dealer, but I think you and I are mindset in the exact same place. So I've taken up a bunch of your time, and I greatly appreciate you being on today, Brian. So I'm going to let it go there and just say thank you. And as we go, I would love to talk more, and we will have you on some further episodes to kind of see how things are going. It'd be kind of neat to see where you are some of the things you're trying to implement now, where we are, 4 or 5 months from now.
Yeah, we still got a long way to go, but I had a blast talking to you. I could talk to you all day.
Well, I might have to make a trip back down to Florida then.
I agree.
Come down and see you. So, hey, you know what? I'll suffer through it. That'll be my blood, sweat, and tears for the success later on. Literal sweat. So, well, thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it, and I look forward to talking with you and seeing you soon.
Thanks so much.
Take care.